a story. Because there is a story hidden in the Torah that has often been overlooked. Yet it deeply resonates with the themes of renewal, reconciliation, and resilience. Three ideas that also define Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It is the untold tale of Isaac and Ishmael, two brothers separated by circumstances, reunited by fate, and bound by a shared legacy of trauma and hope. Separated in their youth by the trauma of being exiled, nearly offered as a sacrifice, they meet again only at their father's funeral. The Torah tells us little about their reunion. Genesis 25:9 only states, Isaac and Ishmael, his sons, buried him, Abraham. But what transpired between these estranged brothers in that moment? What words were exchanged? What memories shared? Let us, for a short moment, imagine their encounter, drawing from both biblical accounts and the rich tapestry of Jewish interpretation. Picture it, if you will, two men approaching their father's tent from opposite directions. Isaac with his eyes downcast, his steps measured and cautious. Ishmael, tall and weathered by the desert sun, walks like a man accustomed to covering vast distances. They meet at the entrance, their eyes looking in recognition, tinged with uncertainty. Brother, Ishmael says, breaking the silence. Brother, Isaac replies, his voice barely above a whisper. They enter the tent together, sitting on the opposite sides of their father's deathbed. The weight of unspoken words hang heavy in the air. Finally, Isaac speaks. I never thought I'd see you again, he says. Not since that day. Ishmael nods, understanding immediately. That day, my mother and I were sent away. I remember it well. Isaac looks up, surprise edged on his face. You remember? But you were so young. Some memories, Ishmael says, are engraved deep in our souls. The fear, the uncertainty, the feeling of being cast out into the wilderness. These things a child does not forget. Isaac nods slowly. I too carry memories I cannot shake of being led up by a mountain bound upon the altar. The brothers fall silent, each lost in their own recollection of trauma endured. Ishmael speaks first. Tell me, brother, what happened that day on the mountain? Isaac takes a deep breath, his eyes distant. I was young, barely more than a child. Father told me we were going to make a sacrifice to God. I didn't understand why we traveled so far or why he carried no lamb. When we reached the top of Mount Moriah, Father built an altar, and then he bound me. Ishmael listens intensely, his faith a mask of shock and empathy. Isaac continues, his voice trembling. I saw the knife in his hand. I saw the tears in his eyes. I felt such terror, such confusion. Why was my father, who had always protected me, now preparing to sacrifice you? Ishmael finished softly. Isaac nods. In that moment, I understood true fear. I closed my eyes, waiting for the blow to fall. But it never came. Instead, I heard a voice, an angel's voice, calling out to stop my father. A ram appeared caught in the thicket, and it was sacrificed in my place. Ishmael reached out, placing a hand on his brother's arm. You survived, he says, but the memory remains. Yes, Isaac agrees. The memories remain. And though I know our father loved me, though I understand that it was a test of his faith, a part of me has never stopped wondering. Would he have gone through with it? Would he have sacrificed his son? Ishmael gently squeezed his brother's arm. I cannot answer that, Isaac, but I can tell you of my own journey if you wish to hear it. Isaac nods gratefully for the chance to shift focus from his own painful memories. Ishmael begins his tale. I was young, perhaps 13 or 14, when it happened. You were still a toddler. I remember the tensions in the camp, the whispered arguments between Sarah and our father. And then one morning, my mother woke me before dawn. We were leaving, she said, just the two of us. He paused, his eyes distant. We wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. Our water ran out quickly under the burning sun. I remember the thirst, the desperation. My mother, she couldn't bear to watch me die. She left me under a bush and walked away, not wanting to see my last moments. Isaac listens, horror and sympathy wearing on his face now. But God heard my cry. Ishmael continues, an angel appeared to my mother, showing her a well of water. We survived. But the fear of abandonment, of dying alone in the wilderness, it never truly left me. The brothers sit in silence for a long moment, each processing the other's story. We were both tested, Isaac says finally, in different ways, but no less painfully. Ishmael nods. Yes, brother, we were, and yet here we are. We survived. We endured. We endured, Isaac echoes, but at what cost? The trauma we experienced. It shaped us, didn't it? It did, Ishmael agrees. But it also taught us strength, resilience, the ability to face adversity and emerge, if not unscathed, then at least alive and with the capacity to grow. Isaac, consider this. Perhaps you're right, and perhaps in sharing our stories, we can begin to heal the wound of our past. Ishmael smiles, a gesture tinged with both sadness and hope. I would like that, brother. I've carried the weight of my exile for so long. To share it with someone who understands, it lightens the burden. And they continue to talk, sharing memories both painful and joyful. A bond begins to form between the long-separated brothers. They speak of their father, of the complex legacy, the legacy he left for them. They speak of their own families and their own children. And as the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the desert, they find themselves standing together outside Machpelah, the burial site of their father, united in their shared experiences and newfound understanding. My dear friends, this imagined encounter between Isaac and Ishmael carries a profound message for us as we enter this new year. It reminds us of the power of resilience and the human capacity to endure unimaginable hardships and emerge not just surviving, but with the potential to find a way back to life itself. While writing this story, I could also see two old friends meeting again for the first time after the Holocaust, one Jewish, one not, separated by the horrors of an all-destroying ideology of hate. They found back together. Until this day, I stand in awe before all those Shoah survivors who opened for all of us the doors of reconciliation. Their strength, their examples indeed formed the strong fundament on which we stand today. We will not forget. Back to our Midrash, the story challenges us to broaden our perspectives and look beyond the narratives we've always accepted, to consider the voices that have been silenced and overlooked. In the biblical account, we hear so much about Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar, of their faith and their trials, but there are no voices of Isaac and Ishmael. What do we know about their experiences, their traumas, their growth? In our own lives, we too often focus on the loudest voices, the most prominent figures. We listen to populist, Insta stars, politicians, and we overlook the vulnerable, the marginalized, those whose stories don't make headlines, but are no less important, no less worthy of our attention and empathy. As we enter this new year, let us commit ourselves to changing our perspectives. Let us strive to be more attentive to those we have ignored and overlooked in the past year and in the past generally. Let us seek out the stories that haven't been told, the voices that haven't been heard. Who are the Isaacs and Ishmaels in our lives? Whose experiences have we overlooked? Whose pain have we failed to recognize? It might be a colleague who quietly struggles with mental health issues. It could be a neighbor grappling with severe illness. Perhaps it's a child, even in our community, facing food insecurity, or an elderly person battling isolation and loneliness. This Rosh Hashanah, as we reflect on the year past and look forward to the year to come, let us broaden our circle of compassion. Let us commit truly to seeing those around us, to hearing their stories, to recognizing their struggles and their triumphs. Like Isaac and Ishmael, we may find that in reaching out to those we've overlooked and listening to their stories we haven't heard, we not only help others, but also enrich our own lives. We may discover new perspectives, forge unexpected connections, and deepen our understanding of the complex interrelation of human experiences. At last, this is a time for renewal. So let us begin to change our relationships to others. I know this is not always an easy task. It requires us to step out of our comfort zones, to confront our own biases and assumptions. It demands that we make space in our busy lives for genuine connection and empathy. But in doing so, we honor the divine spark within each person, recognizing that every individual, no matter who they are, has inherent worth and dignity. May the sound of the shofar this Rosh Hashanah serve as a reminder to wake up not just to our own lives and concerns, but to the lives and concerns of those around us. A call to open our eyes, our ears, our hearts to the full spectrum of human experience. Let there be a heavenly voice stopping us from slaughtering our own humanity, showing us a well for our own renewal. Let us strive in the coming year to be a tiny bit like God, who heard Ishmael's cry in the wilderness. Let us be attuned to the unspoken needs of others, ready to offer support, understanding, and compassion. Let us be like Isaac and Ishmael in our imagined encounter, willing to listen, to share, to bridge divides and heal old wounds. Our story ends with both brothers standing at the grave of their father, a man who has inflicted so much pain to both of them. I can't imagine how much it must have costed them to be there, as I can't imagine how much it costs any person who has survived a trauma to stand upright again. What I can see is two men embracing the future, embracing life, something, a hope for everyone who had faced the unimaginable. In the shadow of history's grand design, two brothers stand, their tails intertwine. Isaac and Ishmael, long kept apart, now share the burdens of each wounded heart. One bound on the altar, faith put to test. The other cast out in exile distressed, yet both endured resilient and strong. Their untold stories silent for too long. As we enter this year new and untied, let us seek out those pushed to the side, the overlooked, the quiet, the ones we don't see, each with a story, each longing to be free. Like the shofar's call, let our hearts awake to the bonds of humanity we all can make, in every face a spark divine, in every story a chance to align. So let us listen with open hearts and minds to the tales of struggle that each soul binds. For in understanding, in empathy's embrace, we find the strength to heal and grace. As Isaac and Ishmael found common ground, may we too in shared humanity be found. In this new year, let compassion be our guide as we walk together, none left aside. Shana Tova. May this new year be one of broadened perspectives, deepened empathy, and renewed commitment to recognize the inherent worth and dignity of every person. May we, like Isaac and Ishmael, find the courage to share our stories, to listen to others, and to forge connection that heal and uplift us all. Shana Tova.